Guys, thank you for tuning into the Daily Candle. Appreciate you being here. As always, shameless plug, there will be links in the description below where you can help us out and support the channel. Uh, Today is going to be an interesting talk, and I know our buddy Gramps here is going to be very excited to talk about some of the things that we've got prepared for you. He is ecstatic of what's been going on over the past few weeks. Let me tell you, I'm sure he's got plenty to talk about.
I'll
So,
fucking smack you. Oh,
let's give a quick roundup of what we're going to be talking about today. We've got the debt ceiling that just got supposedly just got finalized over the weekend. We got the rest of the news rolling in right now as we record this, so that's interesting. We have a short talk about Nvidia, what we think might be happening, and Gramps' experience with the stock from hell. And we're also going to be talking a little bit about what's been going on socially and politically with Target, Anheuser-Busch. We might even throw a little bit of Tesla into there. Uh, I think, and if we get any extra time, there might be a few many bonus topics that we'll be able to talk about. But we'll see how we're doing with time until we get later on in there. So, debt ceiling. Are you surprised? What are your beginning thoughts on this? Uh, what's to be expected going forward? Uh, is this out of the ordinary? Give me some thoughts. What do you think so far about this whole what's been going on over the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
well, I mean, one part of me is a little bit surprised that they resolved it, but then the other part of me isn't. Like,
Really?
yeah, because I was kind of surprised because I was looking at it from a political lens, and it didn't look to me like Kevin McCarthy or Joe Biden really had a lot of wiggle room because each of their respective parties are pretty hardlined on their position on their respective positions, and I was like, this seems like they're at an impasse. But now apparently Kevin McCarthy just basically sold the farm, and I'm a little bit surprised by that, especially when you consider how, like, I don't know if people remember, but when he was voted in Speaker of the House, it took like a record amount of time because he squeaked in barely. He had to make all kinds of concessions to people, more conservative members of the party. He had to make all kinds of promises to them that he wouldn't give the Democrats this, he wouldn't give the Democrats that, and I thought, okay, well, if he capitulates in any sizable, meaningful way, he's going to basically be going back on all those guarantees he made to the people who barely let him in as Speaker of the House.
Yep.
So I was looking at like, well, if McCarthy backs off, that's political suicide, and I don't know why he'd want to do that. But then also on the same side, Biden on the other hand, he didn't have a lot of room either because they just want to spend, 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 spend. So I was like, I thought there might be a possibility of at least like a maybe a couple weeks of craziness of being unable to come to an agreement. But then hey, McCarthy just gave it up, and I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah, it's
well,
definitely going to be interesting to see the talks of why all of this came to be. Like, I'm
yeah.
really looking forward to
I'm
seeing what
really
the
confused. I'd
explanations.
really love to know. I would love to hear like from Kevin McCarthy's mouth like why he did this, because it seems to me like he just gave up. Like it seems to me like he's done, almost like he's done with politics. Because I don't know how he survives this, honestly, because this is like crazy.
It's almost, yeah, so like it's interesting. It's beyond give up. I don't know if I'm misinterpreting this, but let me read you a headline of what they were just talking about. It says McCarthy, more than 95% of House Republicans are very excited about the debt ceiling deal. He said that to Fox News. House Republican Senator McCarthy, debt ceiling agreement is a step in the right direction. Biden says we did not compromise on the debt ceiling, but we did compromise on the budget. And the last kind of shocking headline is the agreement includes a debt limit suspension until January 1st, 2005, White House official. So the question is, what the hell is a debt limit suspension?
Yeah, I wish I knew. I don't
Through
actually know what that
context,
means.
I don't either. I can only go through context. And it looks, if Biden is saying we didn't compromise on the debt ceiling, but we did compromise on the budget, uh, a debt limit suspension would say to me that there is no debt limit. They suspended it. You can just go above and beyond until January 1st, 2025, which means we have a whole year and a half of just unlimited spending. I'm not sure if I'm reading that right.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd really have to investigate. I'd have to, because I don't really know what that means. I wish I did.
Yeah.
Sounds very weird.
Yeah, and this is coming out at 7:26. So like these are all very new bits of information that's coming out. So it's very interesting. What do you think it's going to happen to the market? We gapped
Well,
up futures today at 6. We gapped up 20 points, a half of a percent, just up. We went from 420 to 440, and we are on our way down. The last time I checked before we started recording this, we were at 430. So they might be trying to just close the gap. I'm not sure, but this kind of leads into my tinfoil for Nvidia. But what do you think is going to happen? Because now that there's no debt limit, are we going to have unlimited bond printing?
yeah. See, that's what I don't understand. I need to actually like, you know, modern media is so good at like, phrasing things a certain way to make you think things are a certain way, but then when you dig
Yeah.
down, it's like, oh no, that's a complete misnomer. That's a total misdirect. It's actually this way. Uh, I mean, it it sounds like it sounds like there's a potential. We'll have to see. Also, but it also has to pass the House and the Senate or something. Also, and I think there is some. I don't remember which one is. I think that's how it works. It's going to have to still go through the whatever the House and or Senate, and then
Yep.
one of those. I
Yep.
think it's a Senate. Is the Senate Republican majority? Is that what it is, or is it House? Anyway, one of them's Republican majority right now, as I understand it. So we'll have to see if this bill in its current form gets through that at all. Also,
Yeah.
uh, but assuming it does, I have to wonder. I mean, is Janet just going to turn on the printing presses and just like pump out, $4 trillion worth of T bills? I don't even really know what that means.
Yeah,
You
so
know?
like her coffers are empty, so I'm assuming she's going to
Right,
have to go into the bond market. They are going to
right,
have to sell some debt. So
right, and a
how
lot of it
much?
by the sounds of it.
Yeah, and how quickly?
Yeah, how
Like
much and how quickly exactly? Because that would force the longer end of the yield curve up. Because there's suddenly a flood of bonds, a flood of supply of bonds that should, that in and of itself is going to force some interest rates up. Because
yeah.
there's a massive supply of the bonds now. So,
So check this out.
although it depends on how violently they're gobbled up, I suppose. Also, so
Here's tinfoil. Get your tinfoil hats on.
uh,
So do you remember how I'm gonna kind of wrap this in. Um, about a week ago, maybe about 2 weeks ago, the Federal Reserve started talking. Kashkari, I think he actually did another interview today talking about it. So this is the second time that he's brought it up, at least that I know of. He's probably brought it up more, and multiple other Fed members have brought it
mhm.
up. That they might be skipping the next meeting. Not skipping the meeting,
Yeah,
skipping
no,
the next
no,
rate hike.
right. Which again, it's like I don't even really get what that means. It's like so. I mean, the way I interpret that is a baby pause.
Yeah.
That's how I
So,
interpret that.
but there's never been a skip. Like
Yeah, I looked into that too. I
they've
was
never
yeah,
referred to it as that. That's the first time.
yeah.
And I'm thinking, what is different now that they aren't going to call it a pause, that they're going to throw in a whole new word to define what they're doing? Because when you
S-
read the Fed speeches, their words are very particular. So there's got to be something that made them feel that they'd be able to skip and not pause.
I have a theory.
I do too. What's yours?
Okay, well, mine's probably a lot less tinfoily than yours, but who knows? Maybe we'll see. My theory is they are hoping. Okay, so the 2-year yield has been going up, and also if my theory about Janet Yellen printing all those bonds forcing yields up also a bit more too. Whatever, yada yada yada.
I think
Point.
we have the same idea.
But, well, maybe. But the point I'm making is I think that they are they well and I say I should credit the Maverick of Wall Street because he put this idea in my head and I thought about it some more and like he's probably right. I think that they think that they being the Fed thinks and or sees something else is about to blow up. And here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking
Okay.
they want to say, "Oh, we're skipping, not pausing." Because I think they want to skip it because I think that they don't they're trying to avoid the market front running them because the market would try to front run a pause, I think, but would they try to front run a skip? I think they're trying to create a little bit of confusion in the market to not make the market quite so euphoric. That's I think they're trying to temper market expectations without scaring them. I think they want to make the market scratch its head. They don't want to scare the market, but I think they don't want because the market. I mean, ever since the Nvidia nonsense, I mean, Jesus Christ, the Qs are going parabolic. I mean, everything like the tech is going parabolic. The SPY is getting yanked up even higher. Which is kind of weird when you think about it, because they just finished yet another rate hike, another 25 basis point rate hike, and yet we're still going up, 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 up and away in our beautiful balloon. And I think that they want to like there hasn't been really a pullback at all. It's still the
I
market's
think I
still
know
going up.
why. And
But
this is where the tinfoil wraps in with Maverick. I think Maverick
okay,
missed a whole bunch of shit,
okay,
and this is where my tinfoil is going to come in. Now watch this. Let me see if I can paint you a picture of how I think that all of this is going down.
okay.
I think you're right. I think you and
Mm,
Maverick are onto something. I
mm,
just want to I just want to paint the picture around that thesis. So my idea, what I was pondering, and this was back when I was experimenting about our story beforehand. I might actually put that story. We had a little bit of a story before this as well. Anybody that's going to be paid membership is going to be getting access to some of the behind the scenes recordings that we do here, as well as some of the extra stories that we post. So if you'd like to become a member, shameless plug, you're going to be able to get access to all of the other videos that we don't post here on YouTube. Um, but so I was thinking about this, and I had listened to Maverick and I pondered it, and this is what I came up with. The skip. This is why they're skipping.
mm.
I think they knew that A, somebody was going to blow up,
Yeah.
and B, like more on that
Or they know
after
it. Or they know. You mean they know it's going to happen, or it's projected to happen?
no. And watch, this is why I'm
Oh.
saying this. And
Oh,
two, if they pass the bill, if they pass the debt ceiling increase,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
Janet has to refill her coffers,
Yeah. Means you got to sell a lot of bonds.
which means the interest rates go
Gonna go up.
up
Yeah. Go up. Yeah. That's right.
naturally.
That's what I finished. Yeah. That's what I said. Like.
So they won't need to raise interest rates because Janet will do it for them.
Mm,
So they don't want to raise it twice. They don't want to
mm.
both have a limit, a interest rate increase, and have Janet print all of those bonds that increases the rate twice as much in one go. So
It's
now
possible.
reverse. Go back to they think somebody is going to blow up.
Hmm.
I think somebody did
Already did.
already,
Already blew up, and just
and
hasn't hit the wire yet.
here's why they're
Who
keeping
do you?
it a secret. They're keeping it a secret.
Okay.
And now I was trying to think how the fuck is SPY,
Uh huh.
NASDAQ,
Hmm.
Nvidia,
Hmm.
all of these tech plays, how are they consistently going up with no pullbacks?
Hmm.
I think somebody got margin called and they're not saying anything and they're closing out of all of their short positions and they're
Hmm.
buying back all of these tech funds, all of these tech names that they were short on.
Hmm.
And then I started, because this started, then I
Hmm.
started thinking, I was like, oh, this makes way more sense. I think that they are saying that they're worried about somebody blowing up when somebody actually did. That's what's causing these prices to go sky high without any fucking pullbacks that make any rational sense. And then I started to look who in God's green earth is short tech that might have blown up. And I found it.
Really,
Carl Icahn.
Carl Icahn. Really.
So Carl has a gigantic short position that he has been losing for years on. It's like he's down 50% of his fund.
Really.
I'm gonna post this stuff up on the screen for YouTube for you guys to be able to see this. But yeah,
Huh.
Icahn is down like 50%. I think he got margin called, and I think he's closing out of all of his short positions. And that
Hmm.
is specifically why tech has been running like a fucking madman. Give it a week or two, maybe a little longer. I don't know how long it's going to take if this is true, but if this tinfoil is real, I think we're going to see either Carl or another big player blow up. I guarantee we're going to look back and see these giant runs, and we're going to look back at it and say somebody was closing out their positions. They were liquidated. I think their fund was wound down. That's the best tinfoil I have. And that shows you why that the fucking trades and all of the technicals and everything in NVIDIA that was supposed to go one way has gone the complete fucking other because none of it makes any sense other than somebody has been forced to buy it.
Yeah.
That's my story and I'm sticking to it.
That is certainly possible. That is certainly an absolute. That is absolutely a possibility.
It's
It's
the
funny because Maverick put out a video, I don't know, 4 or 5 days ago, something like that, and he literally called it the unexplained. And
yep,
it was,
yep,
yeah,
yep,
yeah, it
yep.
was, yeah, there was just all this buying, all this, these green dildos across the board, and it was funny. Even Home Depot Home Depot posted like one of their worst earnings calls ever. They were like, for like the first time in like 20 years, they were projecting down or something, 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 and the stock rallied like 11% like
Yep.
after the next day. And I remember it was funny. Maverick said he was literally calling around to money managers saying, "What the hell's going on here? Are you buying which one of you motherfuckers is buying?"
Which one of you
And
fucking bonobos
yeah, yeah,
accidentally hit the green button?
pretty much, yeah. And he couldn't
Did you
find
fall
a
asleep on
single
your
one.
keyboard?
Yeah, he couldn't find a single big player that he knew. Obviously, he doesn't know everybody, but he knows a few. He couldn't find a single big player who was buying these stocks. He said, like, this is just. He said he
Yep.
literally called it the unexplained.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I
and
think I
and I was
think I don't know. I could be
no, of
completely
course,
wrong.
uh,
I hit the nail on the head with this one. I think we're gonna find out in the next couple of weeks that somebody blew up and they had to unwind all of their shorts.
yeah. Well, Nvidia. Now, I don't know about Nvidia, but I don't know, whether this applies to Nvidia or not. But actually, I did talk to Parker briefly about Nvidia, um,
Excuse me.
and well, yeah. At any rate, yeah, I don't know. Like Nvidia, what is it like? Nvidia now. Nvidia added. So this was actually a historic moment, literally, because in
Yeah.
one earnings call in one day, they added more market cap to their stock than literally any other stock in all of stock market history. The
It was like a
second
quarter
biggest one was
billion dollars.
something like that. The second largest market cap ad was Apple back in some I don't know, little while. Apple added a lot in one earnings call or whatever, one
Yeah.
day. But
Yeah.
they broke the record for one day of adding to their market capitalization because of stock movement. And I was just like, listen, Chat CCP is great and all that, but I don't think it's that great.
I
But
don't think it's the AI hype. Even though that is probably what's driving the mom and pop to chase.
oh
I
yeah, for
think there's
sure.
something else. There's something worse bubbling beneath the surface that caused
Probably.
this.
I mean, that's what I meant. Although Parker made a really good point. He said, "Well, they did just partner with Microsoft and all that, and there might be Microsoft might be making a massive investment into Nvidia or something like that, which
It's true.
could,
It's true.
it's possible. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see by the next earnings call because they said that they're going to do $11 billion in revenue in a single quarter.
Yeah.
Now, for anyone who doesn't know, the best Nvidia has ever done in its history is $8 billion in a single quarter. Does this mean that they can't do 11 billion? No, it doesn't mean that. But wow, that would be incredible, especially when you consider there's a glut of semiconductors right now. When you consider that all of the like Taiwan, Taiwan Semiconductor has not reported any large massive increase in orders. I think there's one called ASML or something. I think that's the Dutch or the German provider of semiconductors, like actual manufacturer of semiconductors. They haven't recorded any massive increases in orders. So
And we're not
if
talking about Christmas time either. We're not even talking about the Christmas quarter. So
yeah, yeah, we're talking about the next quarter coming up, like the next one. So, and none of the big producers, because just a quick little side note for anybody who doesn't know, Nvidia doesn't actually make their own chips. They design them. They don't actually put them together. They don't actually build them. They create the design, so they create the IP, like the blueprints. But it's other companies that actually manufacture the chips, and the main ones have not had any particular big boost of orders come in. So how Nvidia is going to suddenly do $11 billion in revenue, I don't know. But hey, you know what? We'll see.
we'll find out.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. So talk about stocks that have had big quarters. How about we talk about Target and Anheuser-Busch Bud Light?
Oh boy. Okay. Yeah, I will. I'll let you go first.
Yeah.
I'll here you get in the cage, my little canary. I'll take you into the coal mine.
So so I wanted how do I want to start this off? I was thinking let's try to explain how we've gotten here.
Hmm.
So I was thinking most people don't know this. So I was trying to think of how do we explain this to people that aren't locked in to the business world, to the corporate side of things, and hopefully some of this makes a little bit of sense. So the corporations themselves like to put on the front that they are making the decisions. People in the finance world, however, know it to be a little bit different. So there are these things called the CEI or the SG
There's ESG,
ESG. That's correct. That's correct.
and then CEI. Okay, CEI is. I don't remember what the C sound stands for, but E
The
and I are
Corporate
equity and
Equality
inclusion.
Index.
No, oh, I thought it was equity and inclusion. Something CEI was C.
Or sorry, the
Equity.
Corporate Equality Index, something like that. Equity and
Oh,
equality.
I
Yeah.
thought it was. I thought it was equity and inclusion. Okay, well, whatever. I mean, listen. At the end of the day, they're all just buzzwords. They're all just, they're not. Yeah, but
So let's just jump into this. So I have a post from, I have an article from the New York Post that I want to start reading a little
mhm.
bit. And I'm going to post this up on screen, and I'm also going to put it in the description down below where you can take a full look at the article. I suggest you read it. It's an interesting article with a bunch of really good information. It's a short read, 5 minutes. It's not a huge setback in time. But here's the beginning of it. Executives at the companies like Nike, Anheuser-Busch, and Kate Spade, whose brand endorsements have turned controversial trans influencer Dylan Mulvaney into today's woke it girl, aren't just virtue signaling. They're handing out lucrative deals to what were once considered fringe celebrities because they have to, or risk failing an all-important social credit score that could make or break their business. At stake is their CEI, their Corporate Equality Index score,
Okay,
which
okay.
is overseen by the Human Rights Campaign, the HRC, the largest LGBTQ plus political lobbying group in the world. Maybe you've never heard of HRC, so this post gives you a little bit of background into what it is. HRC, which has received millions from George Soros's Open Society Foundation, amongst others, issue report cards for Americans' biggest corporations via the CEI, awarding or subtracting points for how well companies adhere to what HRC calls its rating criteria. Businesses that attain a maximum 100 total points earn the coveted title Best Place to Work for LGBTQ equality. 15 of the top 20 Fortune ranked companies received a 100% rating last year. More than 840 US companies racked up high CEI scores, according to the last report. So, uh, this it goes more into like who names it and who runs it. Political organizers date back to Barack Obama's 2008 presidential campaign. The main categories include workforce protection, inclusive benefits, supporting an inclusive culture, corporate social responsibility, and responsible citizenship. So back what Gramps was saying, a lot of buzzwords that sound really
Mhm.
nice on
On paper.
yeah, on the paper, but what we're reading here is these these companies are being forced into a specific political narrative, even if they don't want to be, and their strings are being pulled from whomever in the back. We named George Soros, the cuddly little teddy bear, is one of the largest donators to the Democratic Party, and right up there, in my personal opinion, with Jamie Dimon. So yeah, this is the CEI scores and the entire report cards by the HRC is is forcing companies into political boxes, and it's looking like a lot of people are giving backlash to a lot of these companies and of what they're doing. Um,
Hmm.
without getting into right or wrongs, because this isn't we're not trying to get into like a specific political narrative here. We're
No,
more just trying to discuss what is happening and why. So
that's right.
we're looking at these things and saying there are extremely rich people that are donating to these funds, and they're setting these report cards, they're setting these scores, and if companies get bad scores, it ends up affecting their bottom line in Wall Street and the investment world because of these things that Biden is rolling in, where it's ESG investing, and it's a certain criteria for investment portfolios to have a certain amount of cash allocated to these companies of wokeness, for lack of a better word. It's what you'd probably hear it referred to as around the internet. So do you think that this backlash from Budweiser and it hitting their bottom line, and Target, where these people are boycotting Target, do you think that this is going to have any real effect on the ESG scores going forward, and if companies try to like buck the trend? What do you think? What do you think is in their minds?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
There is.
Okay. So first off and foremost in my mind, there it'll depend. Or, I would think it's going to depend largely on the next election. Because I'll tell you what, I would be pretty surprised. I've been wrong before, but I'd be pretty damn surprised if, let's say, Donald Trump runs again for reelection, or even Ron DeSantis, whatever. Any Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump runs for election, a presidential election, gets elected, and then says, "Okay, great, let's keep the ESG just running along." I'd be pretty shocked. I'm pretty sure they would start they right from the Oval Office they would start saying that this ESG wokeness, because they're both very anti woke
True.
candidates.
Very true.
Whether you like them, you don't like them, that's just what they are, right? So I'd be surprised if ESG would get much farther. Um, I mean, you know, I have to imagine DeSantis and or Trump would be. They probably. They who knows? They might try to restart the pipeline. I always get them. I always mixing up the Keystone pipeline, and the XL pipeline. I can't remember which one it was that was going to go to Canada. Whatever that is, I wouldn't be surprised if they
Excel, I
start.
believe.
Yeah, I think maybe it was XL. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if they start that up. So I think we'll have to see. Will Joe Biden get reelected? Now, if he does, that's where things get more interesting, or at least more of a they get more convoluted, because then I can't imagine him pulling back. His administration will, at the very least, they will maintain their pro ESG stance, and or they will double down on it. Now, of course, at the end of the day, it really comes down to money and political power. Those are the two main things that everything revolves around.
Yep.
If it's interesting if because Target's not okay. Target is not doing very well on the charts. Don't know if anybody looks at them, but Target has been dropping pretty precipitously. They're actually under the 200 daily moving average as of now. Last I checked, they just went under there. If Target ends up biting the dust, it will be almost directly because of the whole ESG CEI thing, because there's been a massive boycott slash backlash around certain of items of clothing they've had for kids clothing, things like that. Again, whether you think this is appropriate or not doesn't matter. A massive portion of the customer base has basically said no, fluff you, we're not going to. And there's been something like an $8 or $9 billion drawdown in their revenues or something like that
Yep.
just recently. And I think what's going to happen is if there's going to be the tipping point. If ESG CEI stuff costs too much money, costs too many companies too much money, they're probably just going to buck the trend simply in service of their bottom line. Because you can be as woke or as inclusive or as whatever pro LGBTQ. You can be as ESG friendly, as CEI friendly as you want. It doesn't matter if your company goes under. Bud Light, is there. There have been memes on the internet going around now that they literally, and this is true, they literally can't give the beer away. There have been all these pictures of them trying to say, if you buy this $19.50 case of Bud Light, there's a coupon for a $20 rebate, and these are real, and people still won't buy them. So the backlash is you know, pretty intense. Again, whether it's warranted or unwarranted, it's happening. And Anheuser-Busch stock also has been taking a beating as a result of this. So I think it's just going to come down to can they can they turn a profit or not? If they can turn a profit with being pro LGBTQ, pro ESG, and if they can turn a profit, a consistent profit with that, I expect they'll keep going. But if they can't, then eventually these companies are going to die. Shareholders are going to dump stock, et cetera, and they're going to turn into Bed Bath and Beyond. And then at that point, they're kind of toast. So yeah, that's my take on it.
So talking about dumping stock and everything
Hmm.
coming down to the bottom line. So
Hmm.
further down in the article, let me continue reading this. In
Hmm.
December, Florida pulled $2 billion worth of state assets managed by BlackRock. Quote, I think it's undemocratic of major asset managers to use their power to influence societal outcomes, end quote, Governor Ron DeSantis said at the time.
Mm. So let me quickly chime in on that real fast for anybody who's not. I try to not focus too much on politics anymore, but Ron DeSantis is hard to miss. He's definitely a Republican. I would say a Republican firebrand. He is a bit of an outlier. There aren't many other Republican governors or any highly situated Republican or conservative politicians going as hard in the paint as Ron DeSantis is.
Eh,
I mean,
I call him
he's in a what?
I call him Ron Dasani because he's just a watered down Trump.
He's a little different than Trump. Although I would, yes, there are similarities. There are a lot of similarities, yes.
He's
But
baby
he's
Trump. He's not as continue.
Well, you're not wrong. I mean, there are definitely similarities there, but there aren't as many. Because I mean, like he's basically he's in a bare knuckle legal brawl with with Disney, for God's sake. I mean, he
Yep,
is going ham,
yep.
and whether or not that works out for him, we'll see. But I do think he is a bit of an outlier for now. However, I will say this: he is definitely a litmus test for other conservative slash Republican politicians because if he sees more success. If he either wins the presidency, which I don't think he will win this time around. I think Trump has a better shot. But if he either wins the presidency or is reelected as governor again or whatever, if he continues to have like even if he doesn't get elected as president, if he has a good showing in the primaries, uh if his political star keeps rising, and it doesn't have to go straight to the White House, but if it keeps rising, he could become a bit of a magnet. He could become a bit of a spearhead because, conservative politicians, particularly in America, but not only in America, they're not known for boldness. They're much more known for status quo, less government. That's kind of what they're typically known for. They're
Very
not
true.
really
Very
known for
true.
big, bodacious, audacious moves. Trump and DeSantis are kind of different like that. But maybe a Rand Paul kind of. But other than that, you don't see that a lot in the conservative side of the political aisle. However,
Well, that's what's
with
tough about them. Like they like we need. I say we as if I'm part of the Republicans. The Republicans need a George Soros of the Republican side.
Well, they do, yeah, to balance out the Democrat side. And the thing, what I'm saying is though, Trump, I think most people see Trump as sort of an anomaly and an outlier, and sort of a quote unquote fluke. However, DeSantis is a lot more, I want to say, more cookie cutter, a little bit more, maybe a little more politically savvy than Trump, though not as entertaining. But
Yep.
he's a more quote unquote normal politician. And the point I'm making is, if his political star keeps rising even steadily, you could see a sort of a deluge of other. I mean, actually, you're already starting to see it. There's that Republican. I don't know whether he's a senator or what he is, or a congressman or a governor. He recently he's a very again. I'm not saying whether this is right or wrong. I'm just telling you what happened. He's a very clearly straight, white man, just very sort of, what is it, a cisgendered white man, very very obviously. But he came out and said he identifies as non-binary or something like that. And I don't. I'd have to find his name because it was a big hoopla. It was only like a few weeks ago, and of course the LGBTQ community got very upset about this. But he made a stand because, and he has an interesting point. He's because the whole anyway he began to break away from the orthodoxy of don't rock the boat, and I'm pretty sure it's because of he's seeing now Trump and DeSantis. See, as long as there's strength in numbers, there's anonymity, there's protection in the herd, and if you see a herd starting to form of something that you like, that you like the cut of the jib of that herd, you're going to join that herd.
Yep.
And
Yep.
this is a snowball that could start rolling, and this could be sort of like the counter movement to ESG, CEI, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's definitely a shift happening.
I'm trying to figure out how to work this in, but it's kind of like an off. Let's wrap back around to Target. So the so if you're talking about these people being the counter trend, that means that the trend would be the wokeness and all that stuff that's going on. So what do you think about the clothes designer of the LGBTQ products? Have you looked into that?
Um, Sorry, I'm sorry. You'll have to repeat the question, but before you do, I just had to find the guy I was talking about. And look, I'm just going to say this. Look, I find this kind of funny. It's kind of funny. GOP councilman announces he identifies as lesbian woman of color. That was it. That was it. A GOP councilman in Indiana has announced that he now
Oh,
identifies as a, oh yes, as a woman of color and lesbian.
oh
That
no,
Delaware,
no.
that's what it was. Delaware County Councilman. That Ryan Webb. That was his name, Ryan Webb. So there, so
Now I know
there's
I'd be
that.
upset. Okay,
Yeah,
that makes
yeah, yeah. That was it. Yeah. And you can see he's very clearly a man. He's very clearly not. he's very clearly Caucasian. Um, but anyhow, sorry. What did you ask me about the? What was the last question?
No, so we talk about a lot on this channel as a joke. Hello, devil.
Hello, devil.
But quite literally, the designers of the LGBTQ pride clothing for Target has satanic
Hmm.
roots.
Yes. Yeah.
So I was kind of discussing this. I know I'm very close friends with people from the design world and how they get pushed to product in these kind of stores. So I was talking about this, and there is she made it a great point. There is no possible way that the product team snuck this around all of the people that had to okay this product line.
Oh yeah, and I mean the same thing goes with the whole controversy around Bud Light and Dylan Mulvaney and all that. That didn't happen by accident.
No.
That was clearly that was a decision. That was a choice.
So we're discussing in this post, in this article, how that there are people that have all the money are pulling the strings of these corporations, where the corporations look like they're making their own decisions when in reality there are people that don't even work at the corporations that are making the decisions for them. Do you think that people brought up the fact that they have dark roots, but they ended up okaying this? Uh, they ended up okaying this anyways. Like, I feel like there's no possible way that they did not see the people backlashing over this, or even for the fact that did they really honestly believe that they like nobody would look into the clothing designers to be able to figure out like what the past of them what was like how they deal with all of their the rest of their clothes. It makes it look like, do you seriously care about your brand image and your product line if you're going to directly tie these kind of products to a more darker, sinister kind of background? It's a very interesting happenstance to me, anyway. I think it's quite interesting just to see
Yeah,
how it's happening.
I don't know. Part of me thinks that this might be a sort of a it might be sort of because I think was it the 90s? I'm not sure, 80s, 90s. Uh, where if I recall correctly, it was very popular for a while to like for brands for companies to advertise in a very sort of edgy shocking way or to like to do like I remember like I remember the Misfits, that band. They were they had very like sort of I want to call maybe I don't know maybe they had very dark imagery, and I remember things companies like Vans and Volcom and big companies decided to partner with them because they were very edgy and kind of dark and very kind of like what do you want, a counterculture in a weird way, kind of sort of
But
not a
they
little bit.
very much owned that kind of like that brand, that image. It
Yes,
almost
yes, and
feels
well I
deceptive to paint rainbows on children's clothes and then
mm,
have the maker of those clothes have a complete darker tone to it.
yeah, and I mean the big it's a big you know at the risk of stepping on a landmine here. I mean, like there is how do I say this without I'm wondering maybe this point's not even worth making because we get into really wonky territory. But yeah, I mean, it is very, like you say, a little bit disingenuous. A little bit.
At the bare minimum, that
Yeah,
is a great way to at least put it.
right,
At
right.
the most surface level you can be, it's very disingenuous.
I almost wonder. You ask. Did you're asking the rhetorical question? Did they seriously think there wouldn't be any backlash? I almost kind of wonder if they were maybe going for like a bet, like any PR is good PR type deal, like almost like a sort of like a rage bait type thing.
But to do that right after the Bud Light fiasco,
Ah, so
uh,
so so yes, that's a great point. That's a fantastic point. That's a fantastic point, and I would agree that I would say you were right about that. Except that this is kind of the thing about the internet age. Like Bud Light, Anheuser-Busch doing the whole Dylan Mulvaney thing and then having the backlash. That like that's just sort of spontaneous, like, I mean, like a whole bunch of like a whole bunch of, for better or for worse, whether you think this is a good idea or not, a whole bunch of other companies have been woke. I mean, Harley Davidson has been like promoting the gay pride thing for like the gay pride marches and stuff for like a little while now. So this isn't a new thing. It's just that for whatever reason, Dylan Mulvaney
ESG.
happened to, for whatever reason, that happened to spark something in people. I don't know why. I don't know what was specific to Dylan Mulvaney. I don't know what was specific. I don't know why that upset people as much as it did. Me more so than these other things that have like because I heard about the Harley Davidsons supporting the gay pride parades and stuff, and I didn't see much backlash there. And that is I would have thought, well, if people are going to get upset about Bud Light doing a deal with doing a promotional deal with Dylan Mulvaney, surely they're going to get upset about Harley Davidson, promoting gay pride. But for some reason they didn't. So I don't. I think that a lot of these companies maybe thought that they could get away with it, or they thought that, oh well, that's just a one-off, it's an anomaly, because this is like, I would say this is one of the first big backlashes that I've seen
It's true.
against specifically against a prominent LGBTQ influencer
It's
doing a
true.
deal with a company. I don't remember as much of an uproar about like targeted at towards this kind of thing until Bud Light. So I think that will it become a trend? I don't. Well, it looks like it's becoming a trend now, because now Target is, as we're talking about, next in the sites. And I think there was another. It's starting to. Yeah, and I have my theories as to why this is happening now. However, I'm not going to share them, because then no one's ever going to see this video. YouTube will shelve it, and no one will ever see it. But I do have my theories as to why this is happening. But yeah, I think it's still new. I think it's a developing trend that hasn't even really proven itself to be a trend yet. You have Target, you have Bud Light. Okay, that's two. But I'm so fond of saying, how many grains of sand does it take to make a pile? Well, 2 grains of sand, I wouldn't call it a pile. Now, if we have more of them in rapid succession, then I'd say, okay, I think companies are going to have to. Well, again, we go back to the bottom line: are they going to be able to turn a profit? Because as I literally pointed out, Bud Light cannot give their beer away. Anheuser Busch cannot give, but they're having trouble giving Bud Light away. Well, you're not going to turn a profit if you're giving away your stuff for free.
Yeah.
So I think I think Target and Bud Light and Anheuser Busch will become case studies, and I think other companies will have to now weigh the cost benefit analysis. They'll do a cost benefit analysis of doing ESG friendly, CEI friendly business practices, and
Yeah.
they're going to have to we'll have to see what happens with it.
All right.
So that might be a good place to end it. Maybe that might.
I think it's a great place to end it. I think we
Yeah.
had a really good, a great, wide-ranging conversations. I think that was. I hope that you guys enjoyed listening to it. Uh, Appreciate you guys for being here.